This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Kuf Yud Tes, the second to last daf in this incredible Masechta. The engine of Menachos is already starting. And as we continue into the month of Teves, and as we wrap up this Masechta, an incredible schos to learn, as a schos Aliyas Neshama of Aryeh ben Ya'akov, Siyata D'Shemaya, the incredible Kayach HaTorah, the excitement of learning Torah as we wrap up a Masechta, should elevate the neshama of Aryeh ben Ya'akov to a higher and higher place in Gan Eden and Shalmaila. So we're holding 4 lines to the bottom on Kuf Yechesmen Beis. We're in the middle of discussing the different time periods of the Ayamayid of the Mishkan. We began in the medium-sized line that in the Midbar was 39 years. In Gilgal, as they conquered Eretz Yisrael, it was 14. 7 of the conquering and 7 of the division. Finally, in Shiloh, it was 369 years. And then we conclude with Noiv and Givon. So says the Gemara today, first was Noiv and Givon, and then was Shiloh. So says the Gemara, the 57 of Noiv and Givon, where do we know this from? Says the Pasuk, and it came to pass that when the Shliach mentioned, he was Mazkir, the Aroin of Hashem. And then what happened, says the Pasuk, Eli fell off and dies. Vitana, and says the Pasuk, excuse me. Vitana, and says the Braisa, excuse me. Kshemeis, 3 lines from the bottom. I'm sorry, you can't see the Gemara if you're looking at your screens. Let's fix that. There you go. Vitana, Kshemeis Eli HaKoyen, Charva, Shiloh. Shiloh is destroyed, Ubaul and Noiv, and they came to Noiv. Kshemeis Shmuel Aramasi, Charva Noiv, Ubaul and Givon. Truth is, I said before, let's just go back up. The Braisa that we were quoting for one moment on the medium-sized lines was Al-Mayid B'Midbar was 39, Al-Mayid in Gilgal was 14, 7 of the conquest, 7 of the division, Al-Mayid B'Noivu Givon, that's the line. I went back and forth. Let's just get it straight. Noiv and Givon was 57, and then was 369 of Shiloh. But now we're learning that when Eli dies, what happened? Shiloh is destroyed by the Pelishtim. The Yidden came to Noiv, and then when Shmuel Aramasi dies, Noiv was destroyed, and they came to Givon. So we see that Noiv and Givon was how long? Noiv and Givon went from the time that the Aron was captured by the Pelishtim until the time that the Beis HaMikdash was created in Yerushalayim. And therefore, we're now going to go piece by piece, cutting up each segment of time to figure out Tachlis, how long was it in Noiv and Givon? So says the Gemara, Uksev Vahimi Yom Shebas, Vahimi Yom Sheves Aroim Bekiryat Ya'arim, the day the Aroim rested in Kiryat Ya'arim, V'yirbu Ayamim, V'yu Esrim Shana. And the days accumulated, and it was 20 years, V'yanohu Kol Beis Yisrael, Acharei Hashem. And Kol Yisrael was drawn after Hashem, so we have Hanu Esrim Shana, 20 years. Eser Shana Shamalach Shmuel B'Hatzmai, V'Shana Shamalach Shmuel Ushtayel. And the year that Shmuel and Shaul ruled together, Ushtayim, and the 2 years Shamalach Shaul, V'Sheva, and the 7 years to David of David HaMelech. Tichsev, as we turn over to Kuf Yud and Aleph, as the Pasuk says, Vayamim Shamalach David, and the days that David reigned Al Yisrael on Klal Yisrael was Mem Shana, was 40 years. B'Chevron Malach Zayin Shana v'Chulu, and he was in Chevron for 7 years. So to 20 we add 33. Why? Because the Pasuk says he was in Yerushalayim for 33 years. And then we have another 4 years. That when the Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash in the 4th year, so 20, 33, and 4 is the 57 years that the Mishkan was in Noiv and Givon. And we also understand from here that how long is it in Shiloh? we know that you take the 480 and you minus the 40, minus the 14 and the 57, and you get 369. And those are the 369 years that the Mishkan existed in Shiloh. Continues the Gemara, quoting the Mishnah 5 lines down. Bayu l'noi v'givain. They came to Neiv and Givain, and what happened there? They able to create the Bamais once again. Binani Mili. Says the Gemara, from where do we know this? The Tanarabanan Kilabasam Adata. Says the Pasuk, you have not yet come Ela Menucha V'Ela Nachala, to the resting place and to the inheritance. Ela Menucha Zu Shilai, Nachala Zu Yerushalayim. Lama Chalku. Says the Gemara, Lama Chalka, why did the Torah separate each one separately? To give a heter of what? A heter of karbanais, which means what? A heter of bamais between this and that, which means after there was no longer a Mishkan Shilai, until the Beis HaMikdash began, you would be allowed to bring karbanais on bamais. So Amrli Rish Lakish Rav Yechanan Meiser Sheni Nami Lisni. So says the Gemara. What do we see in the Mishnah? We said that you have to eat Meiser Sheni where this was a unique, not timeline, but length line, we'll call it, which was where anywhere that you could see, anywhere within the eye line of sight to Shiloi. So says the Gemara, but that has nothing to do. But what about by Noiv Givoin? What was the status of Meiser Sheni by Noiv Givoin? So Rish Lakish asked Rav Yechanan, what's the story with Meiser Sheni? We're discussing that they're allowed to have Bamais by Noiv Givoin. We learned that by Mishkan Shilai, there was a din of Meiser Sheni, anyone who could see Mishkan Shilai. Says the Gemara, what about by Noiv Givoin? Amar lei, Meiser, Sham Me Arain. Where do we learn out the din of Meiser Sheni, Gzir Shava, Sham Arain, and by Kayalfi, Kivan de Arain Lehavi, Meiser Nami Lehavai, says the Gemara, in Noiv Givoin, they unfortunately did not have the Arain. As we just saw, it was still in the hands of the Plishtim. It was in Kiryas Arim. It was in Ir David, and only afterwards they got Arain, and therefore there was no din of Meiser Sheni. For the Gemara, Yachi Pesach v'Kachim Nami, Pesach and Kachim as well. The Sham Aron Yalfi. They also learned out from such a Gzeir Shava, and therefore came with the Aron Layavi and Nami Layavi. So says the Gemara, you're limiting this to the din of Meiser Sheni being learned out from the necessity of an Arain. Says the Gemara, how do you know that's true? Maybe other entities are as well learned out from such a Gzeira Shava, the Karban Pesach, and Kachim. Says the Gemara, Amar Le, Rav Yechanan responds, the Amar Lacha Hamani, who's the one that said this to you? Who's the one that said you seemingly could yes have Meiser Sheni? Is Rav Shimoni, the Amar, Av Sibur Lekriva Pesach v'Chayva Yisekavu Lemzman. So it responds, Rav Yechanan, you're right. According to Rav Shimon, you also do not bring the Karban Pesach. You also do not bring Karbanis that are Kavua Bizman. Avol Chayva Shein Kavua Lemzman, but that which is not Talina Zman. Hachav Hacham Loikarav. Both here and there, both in any form of Bama, Loikarav. Meiser Behema Chayva Shein Kavua Lemzmanu. So Meiser Behema, which is what says the Gemara. Meiser Behema is not totally in his man, is not brought in Noiv Givoin, Vizkish Meiser Dagon, Le Meiser Behema. Just like by Meiser Behema is not by Noiv Givoin, so too Meiser Sheni is not going to be there either. Says the Gemara, Mechlal, this seems to imply that Rav Yehuda, Karav, that according to Rav Yehuda, who says you could, yes, bring karbanais on a bama, a public bama. So it sounds like according to Rav Yehuda, there's also Meiser Sheni and Noiv Givoin. Says where you're right in, yes. D'amar Ravada bar Masna. Meiser Sheni u'Meiser Behema Nechalim b'Noivu Gevoin. Meiser Behema. The Divi Rav Yehuda, excuse me. I frag the Gemara. How is this possible? Vabai bira. But we need the bira. We need the Beis Hamikdash. We need the Shechina, and that's not there by Noivin Givon. So how can you tell me that yes Meiser Sheni and yes Meiser Behema? Well, Avtani Rav Yosef says the Gemara Shalosh Birais Hein Shiloi V'Noivin Givon Ubeisai Lamimhu. Says the Gemara, there is a bira. This is included in what the Torah calls a bira. Why? Because the Mishkan over here has such a status. Says the Gemara, Tani Lo. Tani Lu, Amar La, Lachilas Meiser, Valibad Rav Yehuda, indeed, the Klapi, the din of Meiser, have a status of a bira, and will yes be able to be brought while there was the Mishkan in Noivin Givon, as that had the status of a bira. Boli Yerushalayim. So they come to Yerushalayim, history continues, and what happens when they come to Yerushalayim? At this point, they no longer are able to have bamais anymore, and that was really the end of it. No longer will bamais ever be permitted again. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Gemara, Kilei basem adata. You have not yet come. Ela menucha v'ela nachala menucha zu shilai nachala zu Yerushalayim. So the Mishnah said that Shilai is the resting place. Yerushalayim is the nachla, the inheritance. So says the Gemara, not everyone agrees. Tanu Rabban, kilabasam adata ela menucha v'ela nachala menucha zu shilai nachala zu Yerushalayim. V'oimer, and so it says, Aisani nachalasi. Ka'Arye biyar. Then my nachala, my inheritance is like a lion in the forest. V'yomer hayitzavuam. Nachala sili hayitzavivalel. Is my inheritance like a colored bird? The birds gather around. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So this is all shitas Rabbi Yehuda. But says the Gemara, but Rabbi Shimon says not this way. Menucha zu Yerushalayim, nachala zu Shiloi, v'oimer zo menucha si ad poi eshev ki ivisi v'oimer ki varch Hashem b'siyon iva l'moishav loi. So we see that the fact that which the Mishnah said is indeed a debated fact. What menucha, what nachla is. The Mishnah says that Shilai is menucha, Yerushalayim is nachala. But we see from this brisa that's only Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Shimon, menucha is Yerushalayim, and nachala is Shilai, the exact opposite. Asks the Gemara 10 lines in the bottom, Bishlam l'manda amar, menucha zu Shilai. If Yod Menucha Shila Yenachaz Yushalayim like our Mishnah, Hainu Dersev Ela Menucha V'Ela Nachala, that makes sense. But ask the Gemara, but Elaman Damar, according to the opinion that what Menucha Yushalayim Nachla Zushila, the opposite. So says the Gemara, Ela Nachal Zu Ela Menucha Mi Ba'ile, the pasuk listed backwards. At first should have said nachala, and then should have said menucha. Why? Because what came first? Of course, Shilai came first. So if nachla is Shilai, the pasuk should have listed nachla first, and then menucha. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you how you learn the pasuk. Kachi kamar loy mi bayim. It's not necessary to say menucha, that during Gilgal you're not called being at menucha d'lei matisa, you're not there yet. Ela afilu linacha lo nami loy matisu. It's a chiddush. You didn't even come to Shiloh. So that's how that opinion is going to darshan up the pasuk. Says the Gemara, Tanidvei Rabbi Yishmael. Another way of learning up the pasuk, Zuvizu Shilai. They're both menucha nachla, both are Shilai. Rashbi Omer Zuvizu Yushalayim. So Bishlam the man Damar menucha zu Shilai. And what? Nachlas Yushalayim, as we turn over to Kaf Yudazam and Beis. According to Amman Damar, everything is good. Nachlas Yushalayim. Inami Yebchor, the opposite. Ma'inu Dechsiv, El Menucha Vel Nachla. Elaman Damar Zuvzu Shila Zuvzu Shalayim, the last two opinions. Menucha Nachla, Mi Ba'ilei. It should have said, not Ela Menucha Ve'ela Nachla, which is showing two there and two there. Should not have listed them as two different places. Why not? Because they're really one and the same. Says the Gemara, Kasha, this is indeed Shver. So the Gemara continues. Menucha de Nachu Mekivosh. That was Menucha Kanot. They were Nachu Mekivosh. They rested from conquering. And Nachla is what? Zudepalgu. Hasam Nachalais. What's Nachla? They apportioned the Yerushais to each Shevet. They give away, they divide it up, they divvied up Yerushalayim. So that's good. Techsev as the says V'yachalek Lohem Yeshua V'yipolam Gairel B'Shiloi. And there was a Gairel in Shilai B'Yashem. Elaman Dar Mezuvz Yerushalayim B'Shlam Nachla Nachlas Eilamim. What is Nachla reference to? Nachlas Eilamim, the everlasting Nachla, which Avada is Yerushalayim. But El Menucha, my Menucha. What does Menucha mean? It says Gemara, Menuchas Aroin. Dechsev Ikenayach Aroin. They were Aroin rested. Continues the Gemara. Bishlam Lemanda Mar Zuvzu Yerushalayim. Now we flip. According to the Mandamar that they're both Yerushalayim, then what? Then I understand. Avul Shila Yavi Sharia Bamais. The pasuk is talking about Yerushalayim. But indeed in Shiloh, they were allowed to have Bamais. It makes sense that they're bringing Karbanis. Manoyach is bringing Karbanis, even outside of Shiloh, because even at that time period, Bamais were permitted. But Elaman Davizuvzu Shiloh, Ubamais Hu Asiran, and there was no allowance of Bamais. Ma'evikach Menucha. What does it mean Menucha took? Says Gemara, Harasha, Menucha had a special dispensation. He was told by a Malach Hashem to bring a karban, so he was allowed. The Gemara concludes his point. Tanat Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Shimon, by Yechai, Damazu Yishalayim, Simonech, a Braisa, Zaraya. What's the Simon Mashchi Gavra? Like Gavri, the man Jew meant to decide that Rajmi drew over the yeshiva of Yishmael to hold like him. We continue about 15 lines down at the two dots. Kol HaKachim. So what did the Mishnah teach us? The Mishnah taught us that if you bring a karban outside the Beis HaMikdash, but again, they were mukdash, bizman, you were allowed to have a bama, and then while there was a Beis HaMikdash, which means now you can't have a bama, you brought it, there's no karis. So says the Gemara, Amrav Kahana, Lo Yishanu Ella Bishchita. When is there no karis? Only if it was shechted outside of the Beis HaMikdash, Aval Beha Allah. But if you actually brought it as a karban bachot, karis nami mechayev my taima. Tamar cross as the pasuk v'aleim taimar, and to them you should say, which means al hasmuchim taimar. With regard to those who are close by, you should say, and this is referencing right after the Shchutei Chutz, the Torah says that if you bring the karbanos outside Valeim Taimar, the Gemara is darshaning that Valeim Taimar, upon them you're going to say, meaning they're going to be Chayev Karis. Maskiv La Rabba, Miksev Valeim Taimar doesn't say that. There's no ayin. Eleim Ksiv. It says it with an aleph. V'itanya Arbaya Klolis Haya. There were 4 rules regarding karbanos. Reb Shimon Aimer Bekachi. Excuse me. Arba Klolis Reb Shimon Aimer Bekachi. Hektisha Mishas Isra Abamois. V'shachat Vala Mishas Isra Abamois Bachotz. Harin Baseva Loisa Seidin number 1. And Visha and Karis. Hektisha Mishas Heter Abamois V'shachalea V'ahala Mishas Isra Abamois. Harin basi v'loisa say vein ba'im kars. Hektisha b'shas isra b'amois. V'shachat v'ala b'chotz b'shas heter b'amois. Harin basi vein b'loisa say. Hektisha b'shas heter b'amois. V'shachat v'ala b'shas heter b'amois. Pater miklum. Says the Gemara indeed, explicitly, to Yufta to Rav Kahana. To Yufta, this is an explicit kasha, an explicit raya, not like Rav Kahana. And the truth is, tomorrow being the final daf, which is only an amin, not a full daf, let's pull up over here at the two dots. We'll pick it up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.